The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
It is magic time. Hello, and welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the host, Warren Van.
It is episode 49 of the Warren and Bradley Show, and we have so much to get through this week.
Oh, good.
We have all these segments that I want to get to. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we're going to have a listener feedback, hopefully.
Ooh.
We have a Street Freak of the Week. Mm-hmm. We've got a That's How Women Are new research in the field of women's studies.
Not your research, right?
Not
This is
my
like
own research.
a
I've done my own.
Institute?
Most of the old That's How Women Are have been based purely
on
my
your
own
anecdotal
research.
yeah.
But this one is actually, there's been some scientific research done in the field of women's studies, I guess, sort of. So we'll get to that if we can.
That's not what women's studies is.
But before we get to all these exciting features, Warren, you just took a little trip again. How was that?
I did take a little trip.
Now, you went with your girlfriend, you rented a car, and you drove down to Oakland?
Yes, and flew back. Yeah. So if you're going to go on the coast in late October, apparently there's a lot of hail.
Really?
And lightning. And
so
there was snow.
Did you take the 101?
We took the 101
okay.
down to Highway 1 in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was...
And snow, too, huh?
There was snow on the side of the road.
Did you go over Grants Pass or something?
No.
No, that would have been I-5.
Very confusing. There was snow along the side of the road, like in northern Oregon. Just massive hailstorms. It was really something.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Did it make for dangerous driving?
It might have made for some dangerous driving, especially the fact that there's like cliffs. You have to drive along these cliffs.
Right. It's kind of a windy...
Oh, it's hair-raising.
Often just a two-lane road.
Yeah, two-lane road around cliffs with no like guardrail.
It's very beautiful in the summer anyway. Was there nice scenery at least?
Oh, the scenery was lovely. And we did get to go to wine country.
Oh, yes.
So we were in the Sonoma Valley and in Napa Valley.
Did you go to like a wine tasting or tour of vineyard or anything?
No, we drove by the French Laundry, one of the world's most famous restaurants, where Japanese tourists were having pictures taken of themselves in front of the restaurant.
They weren't actually eating there.
No.
Go there to have their pictures taken.
Well, it's very expensive to eat there. It's like $300 a person. So I was trying to get my girlfriend to go out there so I could take a picture of her, and she was not having any of that. So I'm like, let's get a picture in front of this famous restaurant. She was like, no. So we went there. We went to some other town that's apparently a gay wine town somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, that I had never heard of, but it seemed like a very nice place.
Interesting.
Yeah, and overall it was a good trip. We saw a lot of new areas.
Did you do the lion's share of the driving, or was it equally
I did the
divided?
most. She did some of it as well, too.
How are you on a long haul drive like that? Do you have to take a lot of breaks? Or do you just go?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have to pee very often. I just kind of like get locked in and just start heading down the road. No problem. The girlfriend doesn't usually get car sick, but actually she got car sick.
Really?
During the drive, yeah. It was lots of turns.
I've never gotten car sick before.
You've never gotten car sick?
Never had motion sickness of any
I've
kind.
had many problems with this, especially when I was a child.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. Especially if you're in the back seat.
It's agonizing.
Yeah.
And you're just dry heaving in the back of a car and just in agony, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been very lucky with no seasickness, no car sickness, no nausea induced by movement.
It's one of those things that people make light of, or they don't,
Well, I could imagine it would be awful.
Because it's nothing, there's no long-term ramifications of it, right? Because once it's over, it's over. But at the time, it's terrible. It's just really an awful thing that you're experiencing.
But you're okay if you're driving, usually?
I'm okay if I'm driving completely. And even when I was in the passenger seat this time, I didn't have any problems. I don't know why.
So do you have to take Dramamine or something like that?
I do have some sort of motion sickness over-the-counter medication. I don't know what it is that I pop sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't done a really long road trip in a while, but when I used to live in California, there were several times where I basically drove straight through from L.A. to Bellingham without stopping, really.
Yeah.
Like I would stop to go to the bathroom and maybe grab a snack or get gas, but yeah, that's not the most fun, especially that drive, because I would just go on I-5 and it's...
Well, that drive's monotonous.
So shitty. There's nothing to see except just wasteland for much of the drive.
Yeah, we weren't looking to make that drive.
You go through Central California and you hit Bakersfield and like all these horrible places. Redding, Sacramento, I guess, isn't horrible, but and then Southern Oregon is just all scrub brush and burnt shit everywhere. It's just horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to do once in a while, but it's not something you want to do all the time.
No.
It's not a beautiful scenic trip like driving along the coast. Lovely little coastal towns. Although there were a lot of drifters. And the
Really?
yeah, a
like
lot
the
of
old-fashioned, like Sylvester Stallone in First Blood kind of drifter?
Like just kind of like out there, just kind of like on the outskirts of town with a little bit of a beard and their
Did you
backpack.
see a lot of heavy-set sheriffs escorting them to the outskirts? Like
I was looking
taking
for
over
that.
The bridge?
No,
Just keep
Denny
walking,
did not make
stranger.
an appearance in Fort Bragg or any of these areas. They were always hitchhiking, though, and I always just kind of like, maybe we'll pick that one up, but I wasn't actually going to do that.
I think drifter is on the top of the list of people you shouldn't pick up.
Well,
who
these
are
were,
hitchhiking.
I mean, and these were like drifters. Like they were just for no reason to be on this road with the hail coming down on the outskirts of town, like hitchhiking, looking very dirty.
Well,
and
their
you're like,
experience in the war has scarred them. They can't fit into normal daily life.
the thing about the drifters now, you start to wonder if, like, the ones that were Vietnam veterans, aren't they getting too old to drift?
I think they'd be in their 70s or something.
I think some of these drifters are probably born a little bit later at this point.
Yeah, and I don't... maybe this is me being prejudiced, but I don't see... Vietnam, horrible experience, obviously, for many of the people who were involved, especially the infantry who were in the shit.
Yeah.
But since then, Desert Storm, and then the second Iraq War.
Is
there a
also
lot of post-traumatic stress going on there?
There is a lot of PTSD, but we have just a smaller force.
Yeah.
And we have people that are actually...
Well, and they're professional soldiers.
They're professional soldiers, whereas I think during Vietnam, it was a lot of people like my dad who were just plucked out of, what they were doing and then stuck into this and were like didn't want to participate at all.
Yeah.
Which was probably a little bit rough for them because they weren't there voluntarily in any way.
Yeah, see, I think if you are drafted, you have more of an excuse to bitch about the horrors of war.
Oh, yeah,
afterwards.
of course you do. Because, I mean, if you do sign up and you get sent to war, I mean, it's too bad, but it's like you did sign up.
Yeah.
You were taking the benefits. But if you're just like working your regular life and you're 19 years old and all of a sudden they pluck you out and dump you in the jungle.
Yeah, so maybe in the future we won't have as many war-addled drifters wandering the streets.
I don't think we're going to. We do have a lot more mangled people that have survived, though.
That's true. Because of the advances in medical treatment, there's a lot of people who, with improvised explosive devices, they get limbs blown off and things, but they're surviving, and so there are a lot of amputees.
So in 40 years, there will be a lot more amputees around from
which is the way it should have been. Well, in the past, if you saw a beggar, I mean, I'm talking way back, like hundreds of years back, there'd be, Stumpy clomping around on a wooden leg or something, and he'd have his little bowl in front of him, and you throw money in there.
Like sliding around a skateboard now with no legs,
And those are the people I'd give money to. I'm like, all right, you don't have a leg. You deserve this $1.50.
You have any sympathy for Vietnam veterans?
Well, no, I mean, I would. But see, every homeless person says that they're a Vietnam veteran, and I don't know if there are that many homeless Vietnam veterans.
Well, it's weird because a lot of the people that were in Vietnam, I know, feel a lot of sympathy for their fellow veterans.
Right.
So if they see that anywhere, they'll always give to those people.
Yeah, and these homeless people know that.
I think the people that aren't veterans know that. But at the same time, those people are probably severely mentally ill, so they should, they can give them a little help too.
But I've seen, like 17-year-old kids with signs saying, "Vet, please help. Homeless vet, hungry, please help."
It seems unlikely at that point that they enrolled in 15 or something.
Right, when you're not old enough to even actually join the military. You've already served time, been addled by the horrors of war, and now you're 17 with
But you read about that back in the day when people were maybe signing up for the military, that they were people that were 15 and 16 getting in there.
I have a vague memory of a made-for-TV miniseries called Too Young a Hero, starring Rick Schroeder, as a 15-year-old who joined up with the Navy, I believe, during World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in World War II, everyone wanted to go really badly. That's what people say now.
Well, yeah, people who were 4F were crying in the streets.
Yeah, where people committed suicide because they
Yeah.
couldn't go and things like that. It was a very different kind of scene from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which was sort of a less well-supported military conflict.
Yeah, whatever. So while you were on your excellent vacation, I don't know, the fourth one you've taken in the last couple months.
Oh, yeah.
I was roaming the streets of Bellingham, kind of enjoying myself this week. I'm not in a horrible mood this weekend.
Okay, that's good because people have been talking to me about your insanity. And they're wondering what's going on because you're so angry.
I ran into a listener last night who was complimenting me on the angst that I was expressing in the show. He's like, "I really like it when you get aggro. I really love that." I'm like, okay, I'm glad that's entertaining for you.
Oh, I hope people are enjoying it.
Well, I don't know. I think either people will probably assume that I need some sort of counseling, or they'll just be amused. It
does sound like you need counseling sometimes.
It's taking things to the nth degree, as they say, though. I'm not constantly sitting around stewing on all these things.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, I've been in a better mood. I'm not sure why, because work week was pretty horrible because it was just raining every fucking day. It was so, oh my God. And speaking of the rain, I had a little driving encounter yesterday Were you back by yesterday evening?
Yes.
Your trip? It started raining like a bastard at one point, and I had a friend in the truck, a female friend, and I was going on one of those on-ramps I hate where it's just this huge circle to get onto the freeway, and you're supposed to try to accelerate up to freeway speed while you're going in the centrifugal...
severe curve, yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and... It was really slick and wet, and I was just to the point where I was about to merge onto the freeway, and there was just maybe like a 3-car length space for me to merge into. I was getting up to maybe about 50 miles an hour, still in this curve, and suddenly the back end of my truck just went whoop and just left.
Pickup truck, right?
Yeah, you know, rear-wheel drive, no weight in the back.
Yeah.
And my female passenger, as soon as the vehicle started going out of control, it was just... amazing. I could not comprehend the volume or the tone. It was something that, I mean, that was my facsimile of it. It was almost into the whistle register where, you know, maybe a dog could hear her. She was probably screaming even longer than I was aware of, but that was just in the human zone of hearing. Yeah. And so I love those situations though, because if I were to, I don't know, take a defensive driving course or something, and someone was like, okay, you're going to hydroplane, and then you're going to correct your skid, and I might be able to do it when I'm thinking about it, but when it just is sprung on you, you automatically react in this amazing way. Like I was swerving out into traffic, the rear end of the vehicle completely out of control, and I somehow just corrected, steered, braked, accelerated, did everything perfectly, and got onto the freeway without having any conscious thought of what I was doing, and while the girl was shrieking in my ear the entire time. So it was kind of fun. It was a little adrenaline pumping, you know, feel alive afterwards. And then I had to get off the freeway to wait for the female to stop.
Really?
Well, she was freaked out. She was
all right. Who's this?
Well,
stop the podcast. Stop the podcast.
It was.
I think I knew who it is.
No, you don't know.
Okay.
Who it was actually.
Oh my!
Yeah, we hang out every once in a while. Make out every once in a while. Anyway, I also went to our good friend Sean was playing a show on Friday night, Scary Monster and the Super Creeps. I was actually going to mention the show, and then I completely forgot about it last weekend. But if any of you guys are into David Bowie and you're going to be in the Bellingham area, you need to check out Scary Monster and the Super Creeps. I think you can go to facebook.com/supercreepsmusic. But they were playing a great show last night. There was a lot of drunken fun going on. He invited me on stage again. And I had that thing of like way too much praise for very little work, where I jumped up and sang a song, and then people were like, hey, buying me drinks and patting me on the back. Meanwhile, they play like a 3-hour set, and I think they get a couple people like, good job, good show, guys. Yeah. But for some reason, because I'm the guest invited up there, at one point, this little college dude who I guess was maybe 21, 22 or something, came up to me, and actually Sean mentioned our podcast after I played. He gave a little plug to the Warren and Bradley show.
I like that. And we got some new listeners.
Oh, yeah. Some drunken college people. And so I went outside and was having a cigarette, and this little dude came up. He's like, so tell me about this podcast. And so I started telling about the show, and he's like, that's interesting. I like the sound of that. Do you discuss any of the socio-political... And he started going off on this weird...
he's in college, right?
Well, and so I was like, are you a poli-sci major? Like, yeah, how did you know that? I just had an inkling there. It's like, what's your major? Like, not in college. Like, really?
Couldn't finish.
Well, I am way out of college age.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious that I am. But I think that there's this weird thing with college kids where they can't fathom anyone else in a different social group or something.
There's different stages in life, right? For them. There's high schoolers, there's people who are in college, and there are people that are married and have kids and are adults, probably. You know what I mean?
And people like us who aren't married and have kids but aren't in college, they freak them out.
It's just not part of their like thinking, right? So you're part of the segment of the population that he's like, oh, what, really?
Right. That's a really old-looking college student.
Maybe you should go back.
But he was quite the little groupie. He was promising to listen to the show, so maybe we'll hear from this.
Guy at some point. Guy, if you're listening, thanks for listening.
Julian, I think his name was.
I like to talk to people personally on the podcast. Hello.
You alienate the rest of the audience, but at least that person feels very special for a while. There was another situation that happened during the show. It was a very busy bar, and, you know, it's impossible. Any place you try to stand while watching the show, there's going to be people bumping into you trying to get by. There was no good area where I wasn't in some sort of walkway, and so I was constantly moving aside for people. I try to be polite and make room for people. And at one point, this very large girl
Yeah.
came up, and I could see it was sort of like, well, that was maybe a little too unkind, but I was going to say, it's like if you were in the African savannah and you saw grass sort of moving away in a wave as a water buffalo was making its way.
Water buffalo, okay.
Water buffalo a little better than hippopotamus. Basically, I could see this wave of people sort of being pushed aside as she made her way through the crowded bar. And when she got up to me, I tried to move out of her way, but there wasn't enough room, and I kind of bumped into this guy. She took me bodily, lifted me off the ground, and set me aside.
Really?
Yes. And when she did it, she reached behind and grabbed my ass and went, and gave it a good squeeze and picked me up and went, and put me down on the ground again.
God.
And then gave me this, like, her version of a seductive smile, as though that was supposed to entice me to be attracted to her in some way.
Oh, she's having a great time.
I mean, it was fine.
like her.
It was fine.
I like it. She gets around. I mean, she's not waiting for everyone to get out of her way.
But I don't think, for the most part, men are seduced by feats of strength in women, you know?
No, definitely not. Like, if a woman claims that she can, like, pick me up.
Right.
I'm not going to be like, wow.
Yeah, I'm not that impressed
I've been
by
taken
that.
in by you now.
Right.
I'll tell you what else happened at my house.
Tell me what else.
We have a new kitten.
Oh, yes. I heard tell that this might be taking place.
IT guy John went to the old pound and got us a kitten the other day.
Yeah?
Oh, it's a sweet little thing.
What is it? Tabby, Siamese?
It's I guess black and white. What is that what they call them?
I don't know.
I don't know either, because I saw it and I was like, this cat looks kind of weird.
Short-haired?
Yeah, I think, short-haired,
Yeah.
It seems like a nice cat.
How old is it?
It's 3 months old.
3 months old?
So it's still a bit of a kitten. It's a very curious kitten, looking around
Is it
everywhere.
pissing, shitting everywhere?
No. Well, I was asking them, I was like, because they had a litter box.
Right.
IT guy John and his girlfriend, I was like, so is this cat just going to piss and shit everywhere? And they're like, no, it's, like, trained. And I'm like, well, who trained it? I don't know. And I was like, did it, like, mother?
Did they get trained at the pound?
Well, do the pound people train it, or if you have a mother cat and it has a litter of cats, does it train the kittens how to use a litter box?
I don't think so.
Well, then how do you train a cat to use a litter box?
Well, you just throw them in the litter box whenever they're going to take a shit.
So you watch and you see, like, it peeking out, and then you throw it.
Haven't you ever had a kitten?
No, I don't think I've had a kitten.
No. Yeah.
That's how you train it?
Yeah.
How do you train a dog not to pee?
It's the same way. You just have to kind of watch the dog, and as soon as it starts squatting, you go, hey, and you bring it outside.
That seems...
And then you beat it mercilessly whenever it makes a mistake.
Complicated. You just have to watch the dog?
It's a ton of work, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Yeah. You always think about getting the puppy or the kitten. You're like, oh, they're so cute. And they are, and they're fun. They play. But, yeah, the potty training, the house training, and then the chewing, the scratching, the biting... Yeah, it takes a while.
Well, I hear a lot of people complain about their kids and having to go through that process.
Yeah.
And they're always really anxious about it and stuff. And I always assume that eventually the kid will probably just learn, right?
Well, at least the kid can tell you that it's about to take a shit.
Well, I mean, and how... eventually the kid's going to be 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the kid will be able to do it himself, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, the dog or the cat doesn't really ever get that much smarter.
No,
you can't ever tell
but
it to
they
do
figure
it.
that out. They understand.
They just learn eventually. You
Yeah.
just have to watch them. Oh, that sounds awful.
I can't remember not being toilet trained.
No. I think that's pretty young when you're not...
Well, it's supposed to be, but I've known little kids who are like 4 or 5 years old who still wear pull-ups. What the fuck are they doing? It's ridiculous.
Are you going to start getting judgy on small children now and 4-year-olds?
I'm kind of judgy on their parents. I mean...
So they're not cracking down on it?
Yeah. What the hell? Just for your own sanity, why do you want to have to change their disgusting pull-ups?
Well, I think don't the kids too, like, want to be able to use the toilet?
Well,
because they aspire to that
I would
ideal?
certainly want to. I wouldn't want to wet myself all the time.
Seems gross, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have to walk around in there.
I think some kids are just lazy, though. Like, fuck it.
Now you're accusing the children of being lazy.
Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
Oh, so many stories to get to on Celebrity Minute this week. I'm not sure if we'll get through all of them, but we will try. Very first story, Lindsay Lohan's publicist quits over family squabbles. This is from Us Magazine. Lindsay Lohan's trusted publicist resigned on October 24th after serving as her rep for a year and a half. The publicist said, quote, I'm not discussing this out of respect for my client. Steve Honig has been Lohan's publicist through quite a bit of
I would say
upheaval
so.
in the last year or so. Let's see. Most recently, there was the fight with her mother, Dinah. I don't know how the fuck you're supposed to say
The
that.
cocaine thing.
Where Lohan alleged that she was using cocaine.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was a disagreement brought about by a $40,000 loan that Lohan gave to her mother or something.
They all went to cocaine, probably.
In September, Lohan was assaulted by Christian LaBella in a New York City hotel room.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And I guess he actually filed harassment claims against her. She filed assault charges against him.
Yeah.
There was also the hit and run accident where she supposedly crippled somebody's knee. There was the jewelry theft case. There was the treatment for exhaustion, quote, exhaustion.
Jewelry theft case.
Basically, I mean, I guess as a publicist, that's kind of the point of your job, but I think it was...
Well, it's weird because if you're like a great baseball player, let's say, the one thing you want to do is go out and show your skills. Mm-hmm. So if you're a publicist, do
Right.
you want to have a Lindsay Lohan where you're working and doing your thing all the time? Or would you rather have like Tom Hanks or someone where it was all pretty much safe and easy?
I don't know. I wonder if you get hazard pay if you're Lohan's publicist, because...
How does the pay even work if you're a publicist?
I guess it's impossible for you to look good, too, if you're Lohan's publicist, because all these stories are still coming out, you know, and you try to spin them and you try to mitigate the damage that it does to your client's career.
You know, and
but
the people, you come to a new client and you're like, I'd like to be your publicist. And they're like, well, weren't you Lohan's publicist? Look at her. And you're
Right.
like, that was her.
that was Lindsay Lohan.
You, the things you don't know about are the things why you should hire me.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Next story. Have you ever heard of rapper Lil Reese?
All these rappers, they just
What's
sound
with
like...
what's with the lull, by the way? Why do you want to be a lull?
You gotta be a little...
Why don't you want to be Big Wayne or
MC
Big Reese?
or Big this or whatever.
Why lull?
Because that's just a rapper thing now.
But lull is not... It's not intimidating. It's not cool. I'm Lowell Bradley. Does that strike fear into the hearts of other rappers?
I don't know. But I guess once one person does it, everyone else has to do it too.
Anyway, some idiot rapper named Lil Reese has come under fire after a video emerged online which purportedly shows him assaulting a woman. The footage was leaked to the internet earlier this week. It shows a man who is believed to be Lil Reese getting into a heated argument with a young woman at a house party before lashing out and punching her repeatedly as she screams for help. The video has caused outrage among fans, but Lil Reese, who is signed to Def Jam Recordings, does not appear to have any sort of remorse for the incident. He actually took to Twitter the other day and said, let's see if I can actually read this, "The haters trying to see a MF down, LOL. They gotta be broke and bored. Want to upload some shit from years ago? We winning. It's too late." So basically his response is, that happened several years ago?
It sounded like he's like, I'm successful. Little Reese is very successful. That happened years ago. You guys need to get a life bringing the stuff up that happens, you know.
Now, Lil Reese is not
Reese.
anywhere near as popular as Chris Brown, obviously. And
Well, maybe he'll be more popular now.
the woman he beat
Yeah.
was not Rihanna, as far as we know.
No.
So, do you think this is enough to derail his career because he's not famous enough?
Well, what we've learned is that you can't do anything that derails your career, right?
Apparently.
As long as, I mean, we never heard of Lil Reese until now.
Can we all agree that beating up a woman is the line? Can we? Okay, you can get fucked up all you want. You can be arrested for drug possession, weapons charges, do all that shit. That's fine. We'll give you a pass. But can we just all agree as a society that beating women is the line? You don't cross the line.
That line exists amongst civilized people, I'll say that.
Are you saying that people who like rap are not civilized?
I will say this about what's going on with a lot of this music stuff. It's ridiculous. It's garbage. And the people who like it are garbage. The people who produce it are garbage. And if you're garbage, you do dirty things. It doesn't matter because you're garbage already.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's not like he's an important person or doing something of value for society.
Next story.
Oh, Axl Rose's Jimmy Kimmel interview.
Yes.
Slash's wife, Perla Hudson, reacts.
Axl Rose gave his first, basically, I think his first TV appearance for an interview in 20 years or so.
That sounds about right. He's been a recluse,
He's
kind of, right?
notoriously reclusive, and as far as I knew, completely insane. But I guess he was quite gregarious on the show. He was very jovial. He was talking about his favorite Halloween memories, handing out Tommy's Burger Truck gift certificates to the studio audience. I don't know what the hell Tommy's Burger Truck is.
Sounds delightful.
Apparently they make a mean chili burger. But I guess Slash's wife, you know, famously they have been involved in a feud for quite some years, Slash and Axl.
A long time.
She took to Twitter afterwards. She said that after watching the interview, I was waiting for something enlightening, and all I got was promotion for a show and his evident affinity for a chili burger. Where's the love, Axl? And I stayed up for this? Sex, drugs, and chili dogs? Long live Axl Rose and a Halloween tree? I don't know what the fuck that
What
means.
did you expect him to go on the show and like try to make peace with Slash?
You know, I think we've mentioned this before on the show. Have you ever seen Slash interviewed?
No,
He seems like a lovely man.
You think so?
I mean, he's weird. He likes snakes. He wears a big top hat.
Does he still have his big hair and his top hat? Is
Yeah,
he
the
still
last time
running
I
around like
saw him was on an episode of Top Gear, the UK Top Gear.
that? Oh, yeah.
And he
Looked
was
exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
But he was jovial. He was nice. And they asked him about the Axl Rose feud, and he's just like, well, you know. He doesn't seem to say anything horrible about Axl Rose, but Axl Rose usually doubles down on... I don't know why Axl Rose hates Slash so much.
Axl Rose seems like kind of an unstable person. It seems at some point that, man, if I was in a feud with somebody and there was that much money on the table, I just got together with that person and just went to some arena and sang my songs.
They're still playing. I mean, basically, I don't know how much of the original lineup is still there, but basically...
With Axl, it's just Axl.
I think it's just Axl. I think maybe one other original member is playing with them right now. But they've had Slash, they had Buckethead after Slash, and now I guess Bumblefoot is the guitarist. I don't know. But yeah, if Axl and Slash were to get back together, it would be huge. I hate Guns N' Roses. I've never liked Guns N' Roses. I'm not a fan of Guns N' Roses, too. People seem to love them. It's inexplicable to me, but
very
they
much
do.
love them. But if you do throw together that tour and you go all around the world, you will make tens of millions of dollars to do that. Yeah, it seems
so.
Like
how much is your petty little feud worth to you? You know?
Yeah, exactly. My petty little feud's worth nothing to me, so I would let it go for $10. But
so when we have our crazy break,
and they're offering us like $5 per form at the Ranch Room, we'll probably take the money.
Now, we mentioned the Jimmy Savile scandal. He was a BBC personality for decades, hosted the show Jim'll Fix It, also was a DJ. He received honors from the Vatican. He was knighted by the royal family. He died last year in October. There was a huge...
series of allegations.
No, there was a huge tribute for him on the BBC.
Oh, okay.
And now all these allegations
This
have
headline
come out.
asked this question that I was asking last week. Jimmy Savile, how could allegations go unnoticed?
Yes, people are starting to put together this whole case and seeing that basically a lot of signs were ignored for decades and decades and decades. We have several different stories all relating to Jimmy Savile. I think you're supposed to say Savile, even though there's only one L.
The British people I've heard say the name say Savile.
They say Savile? Okay, I've heard Americans say Savile and British people, okay, I guess they're saying Savile. There's a story, it's kind of long, we'll just hit some of the main points, but they're basically going back through the decades and showing some warning signs that weren't necessarily followed up on. He's been around since the 60s. He started as a DJ and a club promoter. In the 60s, when he was a dance hall manager in northern England, people say that his predatory behavior towards women was already known. I guess one biographer of Savile said that his coworkers at the time joked that the entertainer was either going to be a huge success or in prison for having sex with 14-year-old girls. And that was in the 60s. In 73, when he first found work for the BBC, some senior managers became suspicious. They had heard things about him and underage girls. And one of the bosses of the BBC asked someone to check with newspaper contacts, but they just got gossip, but no hard evidence. And so they just kind of threw it to the side. In 75, his great niece told her grandmother that she was sexually abused by Savile. And apparently her grandmother just shrugged off the abuse, saying, "It's only Jimmy, don't worry." In the 80s, a woman told London's Metropolitan Police that Savile assaulted her inside his trailer while it was parked on BBC premises. The case was dropped. In 1994, Sunday Mirror editor Paul Cornu met with two women who alleged abuse by Savile. He said that their testimony was compelling, but because of Britain's very stringent libel laws, they were hesitant to come forward and actually try to bring charges against him because he would sue them for libel, and he's hugely popular and hugely famous.
Very powerful.
Very powerful. In 2003, a woman contacted the police saying that he had touched her inappropriately in the 70s, but then she declined to press charges. In 2007, police in Surrey received an eyewitness report about the abuse of a girl at a children's home in the 70s. Further investigation turned up other victims, another fellow resident of the children's home and another resident at a specialist hospital in 73. They questioned Savile, but all three victims declined to press charges, and the authorities dropped the case. In 2008, his name comes up during an investigation into abuse at a children's home on the Channel Islands of Jersey. The inquiry chief recently told the Guardian newspaper that there definitely wasn't enough to question him at the time. And then in 2011, he died. And I guess basically after he died, many of the women he had abused felt like it was finally safe to come forward. So now there are over 300 people coming forward with allegations. And he is not the only one involved. In fact, Gary Glitter has just been arrested in the UK.
Oh, no.
Those of you who don't know who Gary Glitter is, I think his most popular song was Hey, Rock and Roll number 2, that used to be played at many sporting events, but when he was arrested, I think in 2006 for molesting underage girls in the Philippines, the NFL finally said, don't play that song during games
we don't
anymore.
want to be associated with that.
And he was also arrested earlier on for having child pornography. Apparently, he was a buddy of Saville's. It looks like maybe now there was some sort of child sex ring going on where they were sharing these girls together. He supposedly had sex with some girl in Saville's dressing room on the BBC. And that's the other thing, too. He assaulted many of these women on the BBC premises. And apparently there was an investigative report that the BBC was doing just a couple weeks before the tribute on the BBC to Saville was supposed to air, and it was quashed for some reason internally by the BBC. So there's going to be more coming out. I'm sure that it's going to be basically just like the Sandusky thing.
It's the Sandusky thing. It's the Roman Catholic Church all over again. It's the same thing that people...
Why do people defend these people? I don't understand. It's like, first of all, the BBC is a not-for-profit, supposedly. I mean, they do have a profitable wing of the BBC, but it's not like he is integral to the success of their organization. Why don't you just cut him loose and say this guy is a disgusting piece of shit?
Whenever I see these stories like this, they always have the same reaction where I'm like, why wouldn't you like step up? Why doesn't somebody do something at some point? But apparently we get in these institutions like this, people just are afraid to do anything to question anyone around them or get in any sort of trouble or rock the boat in any way, to the extent that they'll like allow things like this to go on for years and years and years.
Well, I'm trying to put myself in the position. Like, let's say a young 13-year-old girl came up to me and said, you know, your co-host, Warren Van, touched me inappropriately and forced me into having sexual relations with him. Now, I immediately wouldn't want to believe that that were the case.
But you wouldn't just let it slide.
Well, I would definitely do due diligence and try to look into this case, because I don't know if I could professionally continue working with you. But the thing is,
well, even if it did happen the one time, right?
Yeah.
And you heard about it and you're like, well, maybe this person's a little shaky, their credibility. Yeah. And about the 200th
But then an
person,
11-year-old quadriplegic came up to me and told me.
And you're like, oh, that's odd. But at some point you'd be like, well, I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
I can't just let this go on for 50 years having these allegations come out, right? But I don't know. The question is, if we were very famous, right, and we were on like satellite radio and we were making $10 million a year each,
right,
and our success was tied to each other, do you think you would feel like, would you be able to do it then? I'd like to think I would do it, and I'd like to, you know what I mean?
If you were diddling little girls, I would definitely come forward.
I would definitely do that too. So it's strange.
Let that be a warning to you, Warren. You're not going to get away with it.
Thanks. I always try to quash those allegations with money.
Our last story kind of hits close to home.
Oh.
Justin Timberlake apologizes for pal's distasteful wedding video featuring homeless people. Apparently a friend of Justin Timberlake, LA realtor Justin Herschel, or Haschel, I don't know how to say his name.
Okay.
He produced a joke video starring several homeless people in downtown Los Angeles, where he would go up to homeless people and ask them to give a personal message to Justin and Jessica for their wedding.
Yeah.
And I saw parts of the video. It was just a lot of addled homeless people going, "Hey, Justin and Jessica." And the video was basically, greetings from your Hollywood friends who just couldn't make it. Apparently there were rumors that the video was shown at the wedding, but Timberlake is saying that wasn't true, and that he didn't know anything about the video being produced, and he's apologized for the video and saying that his friends used poor judgment. Yeah. It's different than Street Freak of the Week because...
Why is that?
We don't videotape people.
Oh, that
and
makes
show
it okay.
their likeness. Yes.
Okay.
Because as far as the audience knows, they're just, they're just happy little anecdotes. And they're things, it's me not seeking out these interactions. Well, I kind of am. But I'm not going up to homeless people and asking them to perform for me. Homeless people are coming up to me.
They're personal anecdotes from your life.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that,
So we're fine.
We're just on. It's a fine line. We're on the okay side, I think, of that right now.
So.
Yeah.
And I think Celebrity Minute has gone on far too long, so we'll end it there. This has been the Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
This has been Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. They wander the streets, scavenging for loose change and discarded cigarette butts.
Spare $1
And give me a motherfucking cigarette.
I ran out of gas ways back. You got me that.
You smoke weed, don't you?
Good boozing my car.
I could use some change.
They may be mentally unstable and deserving of our charity, but that doesn't mean they can't be selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
All right, Street Freak of the Week on episode 49. The flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man has made a triumphant return to Street Freak of the Week. It's been a while. I've seen him around, but he hasn't really done anything lately. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I was out making my rounds, smoking my cigarettes, drinking my coffee, wandering the streets of Bellingham. And actually, at one point, I walked by the flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man, and he made some weird comment, and I couldn't really hear what it was, but it was a cat call of some sort directed towards me.
Yeah.
And part of me wanted to go back and engage him in conversation, but I was on my way to go do something. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I'll let that one slide.
Well, he'll keep.
Yeah.
He'll be around later. And of course, maybe about 10, 15 minutes later, as I was walking back from wherever I was going, I saw him and a cohort standing by some newspaper dispensers.
Yes.
And they were rolling cigarettes on top of it. At least I'm assuming it was cigarettes. It looked like tobacco. They had some rolling papers and tobacco, a big mound, and they were making some cigarettes. And actually, as I walked by, the flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man went, "Hello."
Yeah. You
Hey.
guys are buddies now.
And I usually, if anyone calls out to me in the street, I usually ignore them initially because I'm assuming they're not talking to me. And so I kept walking. He was like, "Cutie, cutie."
Now you know it's you.
And so, yes. So, of course, whenever I hear cutie, who? So I turned around, and he was offering me a cigarette that they had rolled.
Oh, the tables have turned.
Yes. And this is the first time ever a homeless person has offered me a cigarette.
Yeah.
And so just based on that alone, I was very tempted to take the cigarette.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I saw their manufacturing techniques, and it involved rolling the cigarette and then putting the entire thing in their mouth and sucking it.
To make it, like, sealed.
Most people just lick, but they were actually like deep-throating the cigarette.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite feel like sharing in whatever cocktail is in their mouth.
Yeah, who knows what they have in there,
There's
too.
probably some hepatitis
Yeah,
and some other things going on. So I graciously declined the cigarette, and the flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man was a little affronted by that, I think.
Dare you.
He was a little insulted. And then his friend, who he kind of looked like a fat Steve Buscemi. He had the goggly eyes and weird snaggly teeth, but then he had some weird kind of floppy Fu Manchu mustache.
Buscemi isn't, like, weird enough looking already. To be a fat Steve Buscemi is not good.
Well, and this guy was also balding, but he had these weird kind of tendrils of hair sticking out everywhere.
Oh, my gosh.
He wasn't looking too good. He hadn't really been a part of the whole offering of the cigarette, but after I declined, he had his hand in the pocket of his hooded sweatshirt, and he formed it into the shape of a gun.
Oh, no.
In the pocket, and stuck it out at me and went, "This is a stick-up." And I went, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Give me your money." And I kind of looked at the flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man, and he kind of just shrugged his shoulders and raised his eyebrows. It's like, let's see how this plays out here.
Yeah.
And so I went, "Okay, yeah, right." And he's like, "Give me your money." Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a stick-up.
Okay, that's not a gun. That's your hand.
Give me your money.
He just kept going. He wouldn't.
Well, this is another thing I like about you. Of course, you'll just stick with this.
Well,
You'll keep participating
it's
until...
fodder. It's fodder for the show. While this was going on, a bicycle policeman saw...
This is armed robbery, what's happening
Well,
right here.
I don't think he saw the hand in the sweatshirt as a gun because he was approaching from the opposite direction. He just saw the back of them.
Yeah.
But he sees me chatting with my buddies there, the homeless people. He rolls up, and I guess what he had seen was the works, the cigarette-making works on top of the newspaper dispenser, and he rolls up. What are you guys doing here? What are you boys doing? Obviously, he's seen these guys many times before. He knows them. The Steve Buscemi homeless man turns around with his hand in his hooded sweatshirt and says, "This is a stick-up. Give me your money." The cop... I can see a mixture of emotions going over the cop's face.
Yes.
Initially, he's slightly alarmed. Then you see kind of disappointed resignation flicker across his eyes. And then he finally gives the saddest, most tired sigh I've ever heard in my entire life. And he's like, "What are you doing?" "Give me your money. It's a stick-up." "I'm a policeman." "Give me your money." At this point, he's forced to get off the bike and make the man stop pretending to stick people up, because obviously you can't do that in the middle of the street. While he's doing this, I kind of walk a few steps away because I don't want to be associated with the homeless people. Flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man goes up to the cop's bike, takes his water bottle out, and starts drinking out of the water bottle. The cop sees this. It's like, "Hey, come on!" Meanwhile, Steve Buscemi still has his finger pointing it at the cops, saying, "Give me your money, give me your money." And the pirate homeless man is laughing raucously while drinking out of the poor cop's water bottle. I didn't wait around to see if any arrests were made. I doubt it. It just seemed like the cop was just so, oh, God, what do I have to deal with on a daily basis here?
Well, we've talked about before how in L.A., both those people probably would have been beaten to death.
Probably, yeah.
But we do have our
tased immediately.
Yeah, we have our resigned,
nightclubbed.
late cops here that are just like...
Yeah. Well, he knows they're harmless.
They're just crazy people hanging out in the street,
So who do you give? I mean, they were a duo, kind of a comedy team.
It's a split.
So you have to give it to both?
You have to give it to both.
All right, so congratulations, overweight Steve Buscemi and flamboyantly gay pirate homeless man. You've been selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
Congratulations.
Our hats are off to you, Mr. Homeless Man, because you've been selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week. They say things that don't make any sense, and then they do things that make even less sense than the things they said that didn't make any sense. Oh, they want you to buy them fancy jewels, but when you give it to them, they say you're a fool. Whoa, 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 whoa. 'Cause that's how women are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how women are. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
It's been a few weeks, but I'm sure our listeners are quite pleased to know that now we have a That's How Women Are segment. Basically, new research has come forward about the phenomenon of premenstrual syndrome, known more commonly as PMS. They're basically saying, these scientists who have been studying PMS, PMS may not occur the way many have thought over the years. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a girlfriend who has exhibited signs or symptoms of premenstrual syndrome.
Yes.
Moodiness, anger, general bitchiness, as it were. I have always sort of felt that it is a convenient excuse for being mean.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
You know, because sometimes I'm not always completely aware of when the cycles are taking place or what's going on. And so let's say you're dating a girl and she freaks the fuck out on you. And then you go, "Oh, what's that about?" And she's like, "I'm sorry. I have PMS right now."
Yeah.
Like, okay. Didn't you just have your period like a week ago? I said I have PMS. Okay. And so you don't want to delve too deeply into it. And so you just kind of, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Researchers working under the direction of Dr. Sarah Romans of the University of Otago in New Zealand assert that the correlation between an impending menstrual cycle and symptoms such as mood swings is far more tenuous than previously stated. This is a quote from the author of the study. The human menstrual cycle has historically been the focus of myth and misinformation, leading to ideas that constrain women's activities. We wish to examine one pervasive idea, that the menstrual cycle is a cause of negative mood, by studying the scientific literature as a whole. We briefly reviewed the history of the idea of premenstrual syndrome and undertook a systematic review of quality studies. They took 47 different studies that examined premenstrual syndrome. And only 15% found in those studies that women experience PMS. So basically, all the data that they went through in the study, they found that basically 85% of the studies did not observe what is classically known as PMS, and in only half of the studies found that there was any mood-related symptoms whatsoever in relation to actually menstruating. Another quote, taken together, these studies failed to provide clear evidence in support of the existence of a specific premenstrual negative mood syndrome in the general population. Now, according to the study, and I think the drive that the researchers were sort of going towards was they were talking about PMS, or the idea of PMS, as being sort of a sexist thing that's been perpetuated by men.
That's what it sounded like to me too, right?
Yeah. But I think in the exact opposite way.
Yeah. Because
why is that beneficial to men? I can understand them, a bunch of dudes hanging out like, oh, what's it, your period or something?
Yeah.
But to me, if this is true, if there really is a very, very tenuous correlation between mood swings and menstruation, then I think this is one of the most insane, horrible ruses that has been perpetuated upon the male population for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Women getting away with bitching out their man on a monthly basis and blaming it on PMS. And we've gone along with it.
To a certain degree, yeah.
Because we don't know what's going on down there.
But we always just go along with this.
Well, we go
right?
along with anything they
Yeah.
do because they're women, and we don't want to
upset them,
anger
anyway.
them because they might freak out on us, and then they'll blame it on PMS.
But it's true. I don't feel like I'm, as a male in the society, reinforcing the idea of PMS.
Well, what benefit does it do to mankind to say that women have PMS?
Well, remember when Hillary Clinton was running for president?
Yeah.
A lot of people were like saying, like, well,
what if she's on a period?
What if she's on a period?
She pushes the button.
Yeah, she's got the nuclear suitcase, and then bam, we're Kingdom Come. People were like, that's not true. That's not true. And yeah, it's probably not.
Okay, I guess I can see like a slight aspect of it where there might be some sort of sexist agenda in perpetuating the myth of PMS.
But my overwhelming experience of it is a woman being like snappy and angry around me and then blaming it on this like biological factor outside their control. Yeah.
So basically it's just a blank check for them to be bitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, even if you are in a bad mood, I don't think that gives you the right to be like rude or mean to other people.
Because we don't have any pat excuse that we can point to. If we freak out at somebody and start screaming at them, you could say, oh, I'm having a bad day, or blah, 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 or I'm stressed out about this, and that gives you a little bit of a pass. But when it's supposedly a hormonal imbalance and there's nothing they can do about it, then you have to give them a pass. You have to just say, okay, that's fine.
But that's, of course, that's the way we've gone with everything, right?
Right.
With everything's a mental illness, and everything that you're doing is based on a hormone imbalance, and yada, 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 so you can't actually control yourself. And then you get the whole point of, like, free will at that point.
Right.
If you're just completely controlled by shifting levels of hormones in your brain, then you're just an animal?
Which I guess is in some way could be construed as a sexist interpretation, because there is kind of that traditional view of women as being completely moved by
hysterical,
their emotions.
too, right?
Yeah, they're just cast adrift on a sea of surging emotions and they can't control themselves, which is true. But the PMS thing, if I were a woman and I had a horse in this race, I would do everything in my power to quash this research, to make sure that this did not become generally known. Because once they can't blame PMS for bitching out their significant other, the whole game has changed.
Rude at that point.
They're just being horrible.
Inconsiderate. It takes me back, if you read like 19th century literature, or you read about people back then.
The vapors.
Yeah, or people like exhausted and they go into an institution for a few months because they just can't handle it anymore, right? You know what I mean? And I'm sure their life wasn't so great, but a lot of it's like upper class people, right?
Yeah.
That have nothing to do all day.
Right.
And just can't handle it. And I have to go to like an institution because I just can't handle what's going on in my life. It's that kind of thing that doesn't happen now.
No.
We don't give people that pass on that kind of stuff now.
It would have been kind of nice to be an aristocratic upper class woman in the 19th century, because you could just be, I mean, in some ways, a lot of your free will is taken away, I guess, which, yeah, But at the same time, if you're just constantly moved by the vapors, by emotion, you're not held accountable for any of your own actions. Well, which is, I guess that's kind of the draw of communism in some ways.
It's also the whole fact that if you have a life where you don't ever have to do anything, everything's completely handed to you, you're not necessarily any happier.
That's true.
You just create a bunch of reasons to be upset.
Right.
You live in this giant house in the English countryside, and you have some kids that are taken care of by nannies, and all you have to do is walk around, look at the flowers all day and read romance novels. You just go crazy because you can't handle it, right? Whereas maybe if you were stuck in a situation where you actually did have things you had to handle, you probably would never go crazy. You would just, Yeah,
I don't think there were a lot of coal miners' wives, seamstresses.
No, if you were the coal miner's wife and you had 8 kids and you had to cook for all of them and take care of them all the time, for the most part, you were probably just sucking it up and getting it done, right?
So in some ways, the idea, the myth of PMS, I guess, is a holdover from the days when we thought that women couldn't handle anything.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. And it's also a thing where we're just letting people get away with behavior that they shouldn't, you know what I mean? We're excusing behavior that isn't legitimate. It's unacceptable behavior. Someone's being rude to you, somebody's being inconsiderate. And, I'm just going to blame it on something that maybe doesn't exist now.
So have you experienced this in your current relationship?
No.
No?
I haven't had very many PMS experiences lately.
I've had in 2 of my major long-term relationships, both of those girls were quite quick to swear by the premenstrual syndrome.
Really?
Yeah. But then if I think about it, they were kind of mean all the time, maybe, so...
No, well, there you go.
So, So I think if you're with somebody who's nice, the chances of that are probably much less likely.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. I usually go with the nice people, too.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is often painful for people, menstruation.
Well, I think that's the actual menstruation.
Yeah.
When there's the cramping and the bloating and all that shit going on.
And that, I understand.
That would make me bitchy.
But
this is supposed to be before that happens.
Before that happens, right? This is
and I always used to say, when one of my girlfriends who did supposedly exhibit very strong symptoms of PMS, was like, okay, so for a week before your period, you're horrible. The week during your period, you're angry. Basically, half of your life until you hit menopause, you're a mess.
Yeah.
What kind of life is that? So now maybe that women know that PMS does not exist.
This study may serve a good purpose.
Psychosomatic results, maybe they get bitchy because they think they are supposed to be. So now that there's no excuse, maybe they can take back that week of their life, and now they can only be disgusting for 1 week.
And it will improve all of our lives.
Yes.
If people are just kinder and more considerate to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, women, bitchy with no excuse. And that's
how women
are.
Yeah, they like to put pretty purple panties on. And then they turn around and tell you that every little bit of thing you've ever done is always wrong. Well, they like to cry when they stub their little toe. But no, they don't cry when they tell you to go. No. Yeah, that's how women are. Yeah, I'm talking about how women are. Whoa, women are. Yeah, women are.
So I think that's all the time we have for the Warren and Bradley Show this week.
Yeah.
This has been one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
This is your other host, Warren Van.
Saying,
if you have PMS, still be nice to each other.
Because you're lying.
Because you're lying.
Good day.
This has been the Warren and Bradley Show, brought to you by Warren Van and Bradley Victor. For podcast news and information, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Warren and Bradley. Follow the show on Twitter at Warren and Brad. Subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. For episode archives and episode pictures, go to warrenandbradley.com, and to contact the show, write to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.
done a really long road trip in a while, but when I used to live in California, there were several times where I basically drove straight through from LA to Bellingham without stopping, really.
Yeah.
Like, I would stop to go to the bathroom and maybe grab a snack or get gas, but yeah, that's not the most fun, especially that drive, because I would just go on I-5 and it's
Well, that drive's monotonous.
so shitty. There's nothing to see except just wasteland for much of the drive.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
we weren't looking to make that drive.
you go through central California and you hit Bakersfield and like all these horrible places. Redding, Sacramento, I guess, isn't horrible, but and then southern Oregon is just all scrub brush and burnt shit everywhere. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to do once in a while, but it's not something you want to do all the time.
No.
It's not a beautiful scenic trip like driving along the
18
coast.
hours.
Little lovely little coastal towns. Although there were a lot of drifters.
Really?
Yeah,
Like
a lot
the
of
old-fashioned, like, Sylvester Stallone in First Blood kind of drifter?
Like, just kind of like out there, just kind of like on the outskirts of town with a little bit of a beard and their
Did you
backpack.
see a lot of heavy-set sheriffs escorting them to the outskirts? Like,
I was looking
taking
for
them over
that.
the bridge?
No,
Just keep
Denny
walking,
did not make an
stranger.
appearance in Fort Bragg or any of these areas. They were always hitchhiking, though, and I always just kind of like, maybe we'll pick that one up, but I wasn't actually going to do that.
I think drifter is on the top of the list of people you shouldn't pick up.
Well,
who
these
are
were, I
hitchhiking.
mean, and these were like drifters. Like, they were just, for no reason to be on this road
Yeah.
with the hail coming down on the outskirts of town, like hitchhiking, looking very dirty.
Well,
and
their
you're like,
experience.
"What women's studies?"
But before we get to all these exciting features, Warren, you just took a little trip again. How was that?
I did take a little trip.
Now you went with your girlfriend. You rented a car and you drove down to Oakland.
Yes, and flew back.
And flew back.
Yeah. So if you're going to go on the coast in late October, apparently there's a lot of hail.
Really?
And lightning, and
So
there was
did
snow.
you take the 101
We took the 101
Okay.
down to Highway 1 in California. Yeah, it was.
and snow too, huh?
There was snow on
Did
the
you
side
go
of the
over
road.
Grants Pass or something?
No.
No, that would have been I-5.
Very confusing. There was snow along the side of the road, like in northern Oregon. Just massive hailstorms. It was really something.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Did it make for dangerous driving?
It might have made for some
circumstances?
days driving, especially the fact that there's like cliffs. You have to drive along these cliffs.
Right. It's kind of a windy.
Oh, it's hair-raising.
Often just a 2-lane road.
Yeah,
much of the
2-lane
time.
road around cliffs with no like guardrail.
It's very
yeah.
beautiful in the summer anyway. Was there nice scenery at least?
Oh, the scenery was lovely, and we did get to go to wine country.
Oh yes.
So we were in the Sonoma Valley and in Napa
Did you
Valley.
go to like a wine tasting or tour of
No,
vineyard
we
or anything?
drove by the French Laundry, one of the world's most famous restaurants, where Japanese tourists were having pictures taken of themselves in front of the restaurant.
They weren't actually eating there.
No,
they just
no.
go there to have their pictures
Well, it's
taken.
very expensive to eat there. It's like $300 a person. So I was trying to get my girlfriend to go out there so I could take a picture of her, and she was not having any of that. So I'm like, let's get a picture in front of this famous.
The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
It is magic time. Hello, and welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the host, Warren Van.
It is episode 49 of the Warren and Bradley Show, and we have so much to get through this week.
Oh, good.
We have all these segments that I want to get to. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we're going to have a listener feedback, hopefully.
Ooh.
We have a Street Freak of the Week. Mm-hmm. We've got a That's How Women Are new research in the field of women's studies. has
Not
come to
your
light.
research, right?
Not
This is
my
like
own research.
a
I've
university
done
or
my own.
institute?
Most of the old That's How Women Are have been based purely
Yeah, on
my
your
own
anecdotal
research.
yeah.
But this one is actually, there's been some scientific research done in the field of women's studies, I guess, sort of. So we'll get to that if we can.
Famous restaurant. She was like, no. So we went there. We went to some other town that's apparently a gay wine town somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, that I had never heard of, but it seemed like a very nice place.
Interesting.
Yeah, and overall it was a good trip. We saw a lot of new areas.
Did you do the lion's share of the driving, or was it equally
I did the
divided?
most. She did some of it as well, too.
How are you on a long haul drive like that? Do you have
I'm
to
pretty
take a lot
good.
of breaks? Or do you
No,
just go?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have to pee very often. I just kind of like get locked in and just start heading down the road. No
Yeah.
problem. The girlfriend doesn't usually get car sick, but actually she got car sick.
Really?
During the drive, yeah. It was lots of turns.
I've never gotten car sick before.
You've never gotten car sick?
Never had motion sickness of any
I've
kind.
had many problems with it, especially when I was a child.
Yeah, I
which is
remember you
awful.
talking about that. Just especially if you're in the back seat.
It's agonizing.
Yeah.
And you're just dry heaving in the back of a car and just in agony. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been very lucky with no seasickness, no car sickness, no nausea induced by movement.
It's one of those things that people make light of, or they don't,
Well, I could imagine it would be awful.
Because it's nothing, there's no long-term ramifications of it, right? Because once it's over, it's over. But at the time, it's terrible. It's just really an awful thing that you're experiencing.
But you're okay if you're driving, usually?
I'm okay if I'm driving completely. And even when I was in the passenger seat this time, I didn't have any problems. I don't know why.
So do you have to take Dramamine or something like that?
I do have some sort of motion sickness over-the-counter medication. I don't know what it is that I pop sometimes.
Yeah, you haven't. The war has scarred them. They can't fit into normal daily life.
The thing about the drifters now, you start to wonder if, the ones that were Vietnam veterans, aren't they getting too old to drift?
I think they'd be in their 70s or something.
I think some of these drifters are probably born a little bit later at this point.
Yeah, and maybe this is me being prejudiced, but I don't see... Vietnam, horrible experience, obviously, for many of the people who were involved, especially the infantry who were in the shit. Yeah. But since then, Desert Storm, and then the Second Iraq War. Is there a lot of post-traumatic stress going on there?
There is a lot of PTSD, but we have just a smaller force. Yeah. And we have people that are actually...
Well, and they're professional soldiers.
They're professional soldiers, whereas I think during Vietnam, it was a lot of people like my dad who were just plucked out of, what they were doing and then stuck into this and were didn't want to participate at all. Yeah. Which was probably a little bit rough for them because they weren't there voluntarily in any way.
Yeah, see, I think if you are drafted, you have more of an excuse to bitch about the horrors of war.
Oh,
afterwards.
Yeah, of course you do. Because, if you do sign up and you get sent to war, it's too bad, but it's you did sign up.
Yeah.
You were taking the benefits. But if you're just working your regular life and you're 19 years old and all of a sudden they pluck you out and dump you in the jungle.
Yeah, so maybe in the future we won't have as many war-addled drifters wandering the streets.
I don't think we're going to. We do have a lot more mangled people that have survived, though.
That's true. Because of the advances in medical treatment, there's a lot of people who, with improvised